Hey legends, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. Big episode today. Pendles hits the massive milestone. We talk about Essendon, whether or not they can break the hoodoo, make it to finals, get that W on the board. And lastly, for the Clanger of the week, we have a guest, and he is one of the absolute legends of the AFL, and it is an absolute golden nugget too. You won't want to miss it. So listen and tune in. Let's get into it. Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome, Braden Cox.
Oh, g'day, Mace. Now, we got to jump straight into the Clanger because as soon as I saw this, it's Clanger gold.
Yes.
Mate. Nick Vlosten. Richmond, yes. He was caught cold, holding the ball, like cold.
Yep.
So he, took the mark, played on, had no awareness of what was happening around him, tackled, holding the ball, you know how it goes. Simon Meredith, very experienced umpire. Simon Meredith comes over and Nick Vlosten's a bit, he's a bit miffed with himself. So he's projecting outwards. It's everyone else's problem, everyone else's fault. He screams, "This is embarrassing, Mace." Which it was. It was very embarrassing.
D50, they're having a set shot for goal. The whole game stops.
He's not lying at this point, but Simon Meredith wasn't having any of it. And he says back to him, just as cold as he was caught holding the ball, he just says back to him, "Not for me, mate."
Oh, ice in his veins.
Just hit him with the clap back. I think dissent rule is out the window, but this is actually going to be more effective than the dissent rule. If you ever start talking shit at an umpire and you know that he can come back with something that cold.
And he's mic'd up. He's mic'd up, so it's going to be a good one.
That'll do a hell of a lot more than paying any 50-meter penalty.
Damn thing just to go through, to have an umpire just cut you down like that.
It was very good. It was very, very quick from Simon Meredith.
We love a bit of, personality from the umpires. We love that. Well done, Simon.
Now, I can imagine that your Clanger is going to be pretty easy. It's Clanger 2 weeks in a row. 3 misses, back to back to back.
Yeah, you would think so. But there's another Clanger that I want to bring up, and it's a good one.
Worse than that.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say worse. It's involving someone else, right? And myself. And there's a bit of an exchange, you might say, over the weekend. And I'm bringing this person onto the podcast because I want to dissect this. I want to go straight through the details of this, and we're going to figure this out together. So we've brought on the amazing Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, the absolute legend, number 2 for the Western Bulldogs, and the number 1 draft pick in 2020. An absolute legend. Welcome to the podcast. Now I've got to walk this through, and maybe I'd like to hear from your side, probably more than anything. Kind of walk us through exactly what happened in the game. I mean, at this point, I think you're kicking 2 goals already and you're smashing us in the air and you're having a pretty good day out. I'm going to say that.
Yeah, well, obviously pretty excited playing against you blokes, top of the ladder, but went out there and was happy with my game at the start. And then obviously took a mark and you come and stood the mark. And then I couldn't really see the goals behind you anyway, but once I kicked it, I was like, mate, that's gone straight through the middle. I've placed that. So I'm going to get into him like he gets into other people. So I'm like, here we go. I'll get into him. Because I know me and you have a pretty good connection. We don't hate each other or anything like that. Yeah. So I thought, it'd be a piss take. And then next minute, the ball started coming back out. And I sent you that photo of where I'm just getting in here, but Jeremy Howe's just leading in the background to get the ball of Darcy Moore. I was kind of pissed off with my teammates because you'd think they'd play it out and get on the line and, shepherd it over. But at the end of the day, it's a bit embarrassing, but I just cop it on the chin.
I'm a big fan of it. Hey, if I talk shit, I got to be able to take shit at the same time. So if you're there and you can give it, I'm all for it, man. But it was so funny because I think I think we're in the same ideas. Whenever you kicked it, you struck it really well, and I was like, "Fuck, this is probably going through." And then you got into me, and I was like, "All right, let's go, it's on, fist bump, boys, let's go, it's all about it." And it was probably like 5 seconds till I actually realized the play was still going. I was sitting there, I'm going, "Oh shit." We need to go back on offense.
Craig came over to celebrate with me, and then he realised that it didn't go through, so we just had to quickly get on defence.
We've all been there. I feel like we've all been there, mate. But
I don't think anyone's been there.
Hey, it was from 50. It was a decent way. Well, yeah. I want to ask you this because it is quite timely, but also NAIDOC week was last week. Is there anything special you did for NAIDOC week?
Well, it was obviously the theme was to celebrate elders, so I did a little presentation at the Western Bulldogs in front of the boys. I played a little music, like a song, which is played by one of my uncles, Archie Roach. It just took the children away. So that was just based on my community and where it was. And what he sings in that and all the words he says in that is exactly what happened on my community where I grew up. So that was a bit of a hit for the boys. Kind of gave them a bit of reality check. And it didn't happen that long ago, but it was pretty impressive that the coach and the staff let me do that. So that's my main thing that I did this week.
Beautiful, man. It's been impressive as an outsider looking into to yourself, the Western Bulldogs, and the way you've handled yourself, man. It's been incredible. The role model you've been able to become, what you've been able to do for the community, and continuing to be that person in the media that stands up for what's right, man. It's pretty incredible. It's an honor going out and playing with you, man, because you're an absolute legend. And doing things like this, man, I love to have a little bit of a laugh. And the fact that you can take it in stride means a lot, and shows a bit of your character also, mate. So massive thank you for coming on, man. And hopefully we'll see you come September, all right?
No, easy, true. All right. Thanks heaps for having me. Far out,
one of the funniest moments on a football field. There's a bit of beef, and it was all good fun. And now we look back, we can all have a smile and laugh. And credit to him for coming on, having a bit of a laugh of himself, and just taking it in stride. Not many people would do that. So he's an absolute legend. He's going really well, and it's great to see him absolutely smashing it on the football field.
When you're number one draft pick, centre half forward, I think you got to have a bit of thick skin. And now it was good to see, but it was very reminiscent. It's very Mason Cox-esque. I think that he might have been watching some tape because he's given you the Mason Cox.
I'm just saying, though, the Jack in the Box gets another W.
Oh, my God. He did say that he couldn't see the goals past you, so it's working.
Yeah, there's maybe 5 goalposts there.
Jesus. One little one right up the middle. Let's jump into the footy, Mace. Richmond, Sydney, MCG. Just a bit of a dreary, rainy little session down there at the MCG.
Thursday night. We love a Thursday night.
It was actually the first good Thursday night game that I can remember for a long, long time. We've normally started the weekends off terribly, but Richmond-Sydney was great. Richmond getting the dub, which, it makes it a bit hard for Sydney.
Yep.
Looking for that final 8 spot. Richmond one step closer. A lot of teams going for that top 8 spot. Now, they're going to be probably without one player, the Nank the Tank.
Had a good game too.
He did have a good game, but he's going to get a good suspension because it's pretty cut and dry, that one, I imagine. But that wasn't the biggest talking point out of this game. Lance Buddy Franklin, is it his last game at the MCG?
Jeez.
Was it? Maybe we might see him here. I don't know if we'll ever see him again.
It might be Buddy's last game. Jeez, I think it was seriously every other minute they were mentioning it. It was Scott Pendlebury played basketball as a kid, did you know? And Mason Cox is American, did you know? It was just on replay the whole game. And credit to Buddy. He's had an amazing career. So if it is his last game there, it's great to look back on some of the memories he's created there and some of the history he's created there. But we don't know. We don't even know if he's going to play next year. Why are we literally trying to force this guy into being his last game?
They actually mentioned it so many times. I started to fear for his welfare. I was like, what does Channel 7 know? What are they going to do to the poor bloke? But yeah, obviously a very amazing career. Plenty of good footy at the MCG. Kick 2. Bit hard the inconsistency coming in and out of the side, getting rested, managed, injuries. Wet game for the bigs. You would know how difficult that is. But hopefully we see just plenty more of Buddy. Just absorb it up before whenever the end does, because it does come for everyone, Mace. Now, Jacob Bauer was talking about the opposite end of the spectrum. This kid playing his very first game. And look, the goods. Streaming down the wing, 1-2 passage of play, hit up the leading option, looked great. Cut to mum in the crowd. She was up and about, as you would be, because it's your son's dream. He's out there on the MCG, running around, touching the pill. It's great.
Love a mom cam.
Love a mum cam. But unfortunately, Jacob looks like he's done his hamstring. Was in a bit of a denial there for a bit, which is, I think we all were. We wanted him to, maybe it was a corky, maybe it was, but...
Took a little bit to get off onto the bench. Did take a little bit of maybe I'm good, maybe I'm not. I'm not really too sure. Let's just test it out again. And I think the physio came over and was like, mate, you're done.
Yeah, you're running on all sorts of adrenaline at that point. Surely it's like, mate, just cut it off, tape me up and get me back out there. But unfortunately, he'll miss a bit, but it was great to see the boys getting around him on the bench, and it's one tiny blip in what will hopefully be a good career, because his first 2 touches, you can at least live on that while you're doing rehab, because it was like, mate, I was going to have 40 and kick 2 the way I was going if the game kept trending in the same fashion.
You just never know. It would be quite frustrating putting myself in his shoes, though, to have the family there. You get 20 tickets, right? You're expecting everyone to be in the change rooms after you celebrate the win, all that. And then have that kind of hanging over you if you're not really having this Cinderella story of a start of a career. And it'd be quite frustrating to putting myself into his position. But like we said, his time that he spent out there, he made the most of it, which hopefully is a sign going forward that he's, AFL ready.
Footy can have the great, amazing, Cinderella stories, but then there's so many that are the opposite of the spectrum. And it can be a brutal, harsh game at times, but hopefully we see Jacob out there again soon. Let's jump into the Brisbane West Coast game because we're going to jump out of this one because it wasn't a lot of action. One awesome as thing to see, though, was Jack Gunston coming back after, putting his hand up and saying, maybe I need a spell well, he came back. It definitely worked because he kicked 6-2 upon return.
That's not a bad start. Not a bad start to the back end of the year for him.
Maybe more players should just have a week or two off to have a mini preseason.
The fact that he came back and just kicked 6, yes, at West Coast, it's 116-35, so it was a big win. But to have him at the top of the goal kicking, ladder of it for them, it's pretty cool. It's cool to see him take that time off, realize in his self-awareness that he needed a bit of a break to come back to be able to play at his best. And that's what he showed on the weekend. And it's a credit to him. Not many people would have the guts to do that. They just grind through, that tough part, and then hopefully things just magically turn around. But, he put his hand up, said, look, maybe I need to take a step back before I can take 2 steps forward. So credit to him. Kicking 6 is not bad for a return to the AFL level.
Pew, pew, Gunston.
Oh, yes. Pew, 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 pew. Sounds like Star Wars now.
And Will Ashcroft, geez, he's continuing on with his impressive season, 28 touches. It's going to come down to a couple there for the Rising Star. It's actually competitive this year.
Yeah.
I feel like previous years, they just blow it out of the water, but this is a good year. A lot of youngsters coming through. Obviously, the Fortress continues up there at the Gabba, and they might... they go away for a week, they might lose, and then they come back and they win at the Gabba. So it's
get their confidence back up every time they go back home. They know they're going to get a win at home. They're just that good underneath the Gabba lights
when they're on.
As long as they're not on fire.
But they got Melbourne next week at the MCG.
Huge Friday night thriller.
Another chance to prove that they can play at the MCG against Melbourne, against good competition. Last time they lost against Hawthorn, but Hawks seem to be their bogey team. They lose to Hawthorn, whereas, another crack at it against Melbourne, and they're absolutely flying, at the moment, Brisbane, in that gap. It goes Collingwood, Port up there, 2-horse race, and then out beneath them, it goes Brisbane, Port, Daylight, the rest of the scrubs trying to win a game. I
think they're a top 4 team. I think it'd be hopefully us, Port, Brisbane, and probably Melbourne, I think, might be the last one. But there's going to be obviously a big top 4 game over the weekend. Trying to battle out for the top 4 between Brisbane and Melbourne. It's going to be, I think, one of the games of the weekend for sure.
It is a big game because it leaves the door open. If Melbourne lose, it leaves the door open for another team to sneak up in there. Let's jump into the next blockbuster because it was white hot, Mace. Giants v Hawthorn.
This is your favorite team. You love the Giants. Absolutely love them.
Oh, and what's not to love, Mace? Because Jesse Hogan, when he's out there kicking snags, one of the most consistent forwards in the entire Australian Football League, I would say. They're really making a run for it because they're probably one of the most informed teams in the comp at the moment. They don't lose by big margins when they do lose, and boy, they're not losing that often at the moment. They're getting the dubs, so I'm putting it right up there. That I reckon they can squeeze into that last spot. Even, they can go up above that. That 5th through 8th is really open now because it was just that 8th slot. But I feel like,
everyone's 1 or 2 kind of games away from each other. Yeah, it's like every year I feel like it's kind of like that.
No one's really seeming to be putting their hand up to just take it. Geelong have snuck their way back up in there, which we'll touch on, but they kind of give me the heebie-jeebies coming good finals time.
You give a lot of love to GWS. Now, I'm here to back in and give a bit of love to Hawthorn, right? We say it every single week. They keep showing up. They keep fighting. I mean, they go down 85-72 in this game, but the whole time they were coming back. It wasn't like they laid down and just fell over and said, no, we don't want to be here anymore. We're up in Sydney. It's just an away game. We'll just go home, whatever. No, they actually put in a good effort. And yes, they're not in that finals hunt at the moment, but they're not they're not just giving up and just saying, this isn't our year and we're just going to go and go to sleep.
Well, they had a couple of disappointing performances in the lead up to this and they're back to form, but you're going to get that from, the Hawthorns of the league, the North Melbournes of the league, where it's you can be competitive all the way through, and then you have one down day, and with youth through your team, it can drop off a bit.
We digress. We'll move into St Kilda versus Melbourne. A lot of hype around this one because this is a 4 and 5 spot.
And it was a good game.
It was a good game.
It was a good game. Now, you'd have to be living under a rock that's under another rock if you didn't see Clayton Oliver's, newsworthy, I would say, frustration that was on display for the cameras down there at training, where he was having a bit of a back and forth with the fitness guru down there in Melbourne. I heard so many, journalists and media commentators and lip readers reading what was being said. Now, that out the window because we don't know what was said.
No one does.
So I just want to ask, from a player's perspective, how heated can some of these conversations get around the club when you're talking about, if I was like, hey, Mace, I think you're going to miss the next 5 and you want to play the next 5.
Yeah.
You're butting heads there. Like, how heated do these conversations get?
Well, there's probably 3 different directions of heat, right? So you've got the coaches, right? They want their best players on the track. They're pushing you to be ready to go. So they're pushing not only yourself, they're also pushing the physios and doctors to make sure you're going to get out on the track as soon as possible. Then you have the personal side of things, right? You might be out of contract. You might be trying to push to make sure you're getting games so you're in the good team that's going to make it into the finals, all that kind of stuff. Then you have the doctors. And the doctors are there because they're there to tell you yes or no. But if they don't say no and you go out and say yes and you do your hamstring again, you know who the coach is looking at? The doctor and the physios. And they're going to say you should have done something different. So it's everyone that's trying to cover the bases. And sometimes you need to push. Sometimes you need to push people to say, I know my body best. I can do this. I can go do extra runs or extra sprints and whatnot to be able to make sure I'm good for the weekend. Or, I need to do extras or I need to pull back some, right? At the end of the day, like, it's your career. You make the decisions that's best for you. But you're guided by the physios and you're guided by the coaches. And sometimes the doctor takes it out of your hands, right? We talk about concussions and stuff and you're 2 weeks out. And that's just, that's the lay of the law, but the lay of the land. But I can understand from Clayton's side of like wanting to play. He's been out for a while. He's getting probably pretty frustrated because he's sitting there running circles around, the oval and not being able to touch a footy and not being able to be in training normality wise. Like we've all been there. And yes, sometimes there are stern words that have because you want to play. And that's part of being a competitive beast is you want to play and you can't just sit there and just, trot along, just think everything's okay. Like you need to push people to make sure that, we are trying to get there as quickly as possible to be as successful as possible. And that's probably what happened over the weekend. But as the media does, they see a few stern words and they go freaking out thinking the whole club's, arguing with each other and everything's going and blowing up. And it's like, no, he wanted to tell him he could do more. And the physio was saying, no, that's our session and that's all for the day. That's
the high performance environment. Now they were compelling pitches because they're interesting. It's something that you don't see every day as, the normal everyday person that goes to work.
So that's probably usually done inside.
Yeah.
Right? So you might be in like a doctor's office and these conversations are had. I think because it was in a public outdoor space on the track, then the media kind of saw something they usually don't see.
Yeah, and it's not like, Janet from accounting doesn't flick through an email and you say, what the fuck, Janet? Where's me email? So
Karen.
So, the high performance environment, it can be different.
It's a lot more direct feedback, I'd say.
People see an athlete and go like, the athlete, no matter what, should only have the team in mind and go forward. But there are other things that play into your head, which is like, I've got to be playing this weekend because my spot's like up for grabs and I got to beat this guy.
Which you might have a bonus you're trying to reach and it's like, I need 5 more games and I've only got 7 more to play. Like there's so many things I can go into it, but I think the people don't realize is I can almost guarantee you this. After that conversation was had, they probably went in and it was normal and they weren't like upset at each other. They're just like, yeah, I respect the fact that you want to play and I respect that you don't want to get, all the media scrutiny if I get injured again. And that's just 2 heads butting each other, trying to get the best scenario for both of them. And whenever sometimes it's not marrying up. So that's probably what gets lost in it is like, it's a high professional environment and high performing environment. People don't see this, like you said, in their office. But in AFL, this is normal. Like you want the best. Everyone's competitive, trying to win a flag, and that's what's going to happen.
I feel like the docs and the physios are going to have their hands full coming out of this game because poor St Kilda.
Oh, jeez.
It was a real car crash. And of course, the biggest news and saddest news of them all, Max King, 20 seconds into the game.
Right away.
Just does his shoulder again, out for the season. Just can't catch a break at the moment. And, he was looking so good for him and evolved, from what I could see, evolved as a forward. He was this big, brute of a forward coming back from like his last break. And it was great to watch him play footy. Like I was really enjoying what he was able to do out there. Now he's out for the season. Must be frustrating to be, constantly in and out of the side when you just want to put together some consistent footy.
Oh, it'd be frustrating as hell. And 20 seconds into a game, we talk about, the Richmond player that, Jacob Bauer that got injured right away. And it'd just be so frustrating. You get all hyped up for a game, right? You get all anticipation and everything else, and you get all excited, and you get the adrenaline running, and then 20 seconds in, you're sitting there with the, jacket on, not playing the rest of the day. And then not only that, but to know that it's an injury he's kind of done before in his shoulders and probably know the extent of it and how serious it probably is going to be, it would be playing on your mind of just how unlucky I am. And yeah, just the demons of football can sometimes take over. But you'll have a bit of another stint on the sideline and rehab and have to go through it all again, which can be quite frustrating. But like you said, he was showing signs, and it's if he can just get his body to just, want to be on the same page as his mind, then he'd be a hell of a force in the league.
And he wasn't the only one out there. Seb Ross, hamstring, Zane Cordy, concussion, both before halftime. And I think that was probably the most impressive part from St Kilda's aspect. Although, unfortunate to lose these players, they really put up a hell of a fight. Every time it looked like it was getting away from them, they just caught it back up. And they made it into a hell of a game, even though they were very undermanned.
Yeah, 2 on the bench. Oh, man, that would be so tough to look at. Ben Brown had a cool, I guess I want to acknowledge it's something cool little milestone they had. Now, he played his 167th game, which was matching his uncle who played for Collingwood and Fitzroy. And I know he posted something on social media, and I love Ben Brown, big fan of him. So I want to give him a little shout out of congratulations, matching the uncle's career as far as games played. And he's the nicest guy in the AFL. Happy to say that, nicest person.
We'll have to get him in on the podcast because he just seems like an absolute legend. I've never met, but Petracca. This was something interesting, and there was calls throughout the week for it. Petracca to play forward.
Yeah.
Because the knock was he can run all day in the midfield, but if he had a shot once he got forward, he was cooked, mate, and he kept missing. So start him forward, Dusty S type role that everyone always, they tied Jordan DeGoey to that, and Christian Petracca, much the same, but he looked great up there. Kicked 4 goals. He's just the forward craft of I'm probably not going to impact this. Gets around to the front and center, gets the crumb, kicks the goal, fast, powerful, can push off, can take marks. And he's not cooked when he takes shots at goal. So they go through the big sticks.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's you want 2 of him because you want one in the guts and you want one up forward. But did you see much of this game, and how'd the balance look to you?
Yeah, it looked good. I think having those players and Jordan DeGoey, Dustin Martin, those 3 I feel are, and even Lachie Neale, those 3 I feel are just bulls, absolute bulls. And they just can't get tackled, burst through packs, just all that kind of stuff. And just they, are one of those players you can put in different positions and they're going to be successful. And Petracca being played forward now, I think is going to be something that they'll probably be looking at in the future of going, if he can kick 4 goals a game, why would we have enough players in the midfield, especially if you get Clayton Oliver back. He's definitely probably going to keep playing forward if he's going to be kicking that many goals a game. So
tie that to Collingwood, because you would have sat in a million meetings and it's what do you do with Jordan DeGoey? If you put him up forward, he can kick 4 to 6. If you put him in the midfield, he can get 10 clearances. And it's where do you put someone like that?
It just depends where we need him at the time. If we need more goals and stuff, we need maybe someone that's a bit more powerful up there in the forward line, we might put him there. But I think Nick Dacos has moved into the midfield now from defense, so now there's one less spot in the midfield just going forward. But now Tay Adams has started to play a lot more forward, and he's come out of the middle. So it's amazing and awesome for us to be able to shift magnets around like that and not have any kind of issue, and be able to have players that can play different positions at different times during the game, depending on what we need.
So you need the players to be stepping up to fill that role. Ideally, for him to be able to move forward and play forward, you need a midfielder to put their hand up and take his spot.
Well, this is the thing now. It's you can put him in the forward line, but if you don't get it out of the midfield to the forward line, it's pretty useless putting him up there. So you kind of have to have someone to be able to replace him in the middle to make sure you still can get the ball forward.
Port Adelaide versus the Suns. This was, it was going into the weekend, it was just danger signs for Stewie Jew and the Suns.
He's got so much attention over the last few weeks.
Because you knew how much pressure he had on him already. And going in to the team equal first on the ladder, Port Adelaide at home, I feel it's unfair because the expectation would be that the Suns lose this game. But once you get this much attention on you it doesn't matter what the expectation is. You need a win to get people off your back. Now, unfortunately, the Suns didn't get that. And there was a bit of controversy with Stewie Dew taking Ben King off.
Three-quarter time.
At three-quarter time. He said it was a tactical sub. It was a bit slow out there, needed some more pace in the game. So explain that to him on the bench. You'd like to think that you could back in your big key marquee player to get themselves back into the game if they weren't out, like if they weren't in it. And it only takes a quarter for a big key forward to tear a game apart.
Yeah.
So does that come down to attitude? Does it, maybe it is just really slow out there, but you're keeping slower guys out there.
Yeah, you got to think this. Casbolt kicked 4 on the day. So Casbolt was essentially their massive key forward on the forward line.
Can't take him out.
No, you're not going to take him out. And then if you're looking to play a bit of a faster ground because Adelaide's so small, right? So like Adelaide's field's a lot skinnier. It's a lot more fast paced whenever you're playing there. I think it probably in his decision making, he's like, I don't need as many bigs on here because we're behind. We need to get the ball moving forward. We need to probably get a bit of pace on the game. So he takes the one person out of the two of those that are playing key forward that's not having as good of a day, and that was Ben King on the day. So I think that was probably the decision behind that was probably the reasoning. But he had one disposal in the third quarter, and it's like it can be frustrating as a key forward because you're not going to get a million disposals because you're not around the football. You're waiting for the ball to get to you. So he pulled him out. And it was a bit of a story over the weekend, but we all know what he can. Ben King can do. Like he can, like you said, he can tear apart a game in a quarter. So I think it would be awesome to see him come out in the next game and just kick a bag. Just kick an absolute bag.
I do love watching the King boys play. So it wasn't a great weekend for
How
either.
How good would it be if you saw both King boys playing on the same team?
I would love it.
It'd be so good.
It would be really good.
Dacos-esque.
That was great insight as to why, because people get emotionally charged and they're like, oh, well, clearly Stuart Dew just doesn't like Ben King. He's taking him off.
I can't imagine Ben King wouldn't be playing next week.
That would be trouble signs if we didn't see Ben King out there. One more before we move into the positives of Port Adelaide, because there was plenty of them. Gold Coast in a bit of trouble. Obviously, a lot of heat on them, but this is their next 4. Saints, Giants away, who's a big,
love that.
Can't beat the Giants away. Brisbane, then Adelaide away.
That's a tough back end.
That's a tough back end, and 4 more, bad losses, and
well, I said I still want the Suns to make the 8. I know it's going to be a tough ride home. It's going to be an absolute tough ride home into what you might call the sunset, but it'll be interesting to see how they go. And it's going to take some, I guess, technically some upsets on the wagering line, but I think the Suns, there's a chance. There's always a chance. I'm not sure where Tuke Miller is, but if he comes back in this, like
Tuke's back.
Is he?
He's back.
Huge. He's going to just dominate. I've got a feeling he's going to dominate. He's going to bring the team up to the top 8.
Let's jump into the Geelong North Melbourne game because, it is what it is, this one, isn't it? One good thing for North Melbourne?
What's that?
Loved their kits. I thought their kits, the full blue with the white kangaroo front and center, I loved that. Bring that back. Maybe don't bring that footy back ever again. maybe
tough over there in GMHBA, their hometown.
Yeah, not great. I mean, they've had a couple of rough weeks too. Geelong, this is where I'm getting to. They're starting to come home strong, which I don't like at all.
Wow. Why is that?
Well, one, I'm not a Geelong supporter, mate. So if you can string some wins together, round 20 onwards, you got the momentum going into finals and you can really do some damage.
If they do make the 8, they'll be a force to be reckoned with.
And if you're looking for any form of motivation, it all comes at finals. If you're these old guys and you might only have 1-2 seasons left, really turn it on around finals time. Now, there was a nice little milestone. Seems we've been touching on milestones. Zach Toohey got the Irish Games record off Jimmy Steins.
Yeah.
Obviously, an absolute legend, Jimmy Steins. And his family gifted him a nice little Melbourne jumper.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Just to say congratulations for the moment.
It's incredible what he's been able to accomplish. And like me being an expat also that's come to Australia, like it just kind of means, I don't know, I look at that and I'm like, that is so impressive. Like so impressive what he's done. And not only that, but like kind of settling here in Australia. He's got a family and stuff now. And the way he's just handled himself has been incredible, and it's a credit to him, and it's great to see him be able to to break that record. And I'm sure even after whenever he had his speech and stuff, he was like, I'm almost embarrassed to still be named with Jim Steins, and it's incredible what he was able to bring to the game and in his career. And he just he loves the idea of him and what he's been able to do for Irish players coming over here from Ireland. It's incredible, and to have a Melbourne jumper given to him, I'm sure would have meant a lot. And it's crazy. And even during the game, they begged him on to kick a torp, and he did it. He launched one. It was so good. It was just like a happy day for him,
We talk about little positive signs for some of these teams that aren't going to be playing finals.
Yeah.
North Melbourne, Cooper Harvey. Now,
yes.
Brent Harvey's son.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
So cool to see some of the media that came out with that.
And he did a cool little, the announcement video where he was walking out with his son. He just, mate, you got to train hard today. Train hard today. I'd be mate, Dad, piss off. Like, what do you reckon I'm going to do, mate? Come
Your
out here.
Done. It's my time now.
Come out here and half-ass it. But he got to announce that Cooper was playing footy, and he came out and had a really strong showing and kicked an amazing goal from 50, and everyone got around him, and it looks really good. So they just keep racking up these players, the youth coming through.
400 games to go to match his stats record.
Yeah, well, if he's got the genes, he could surpass him. But a couple of downsides to this game. Now, Griffin Lowe came across from Freo, was having a positive season. Unfortunately, tore his ACL, which isn't good to see. And the North captain, Jai Simpkin, went down with a concussion, so he'll miss next week.
Jeez.
But Stengel did bounce back and kick 5. So he's been, his form's been down a bit, hasn't been kicking the goals. Well, he just came out and kicked 5. Now, I don't know what's a Stengel sound.
Stengel. I don't know. It sounds like a dessert almost.
Yeah, I was thinking tri-Stengel, like ding. Like a
What?
You know the triangle, the musical instrument?
They call it tri-stangle.
Yeah, well, that's the play on words, mate. That's how it works, because what else is called a stangle? Nothing's a stangle.
I don't know, but the tri-stangle.
Tri-stangle. Ding, 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 ding. I just my creative throws to these games. Let's jump into the Essendon Adelaide game. I think the score is flattering here because Essendon really put on a show. I feel like they've really been flying under the radar for most people this season, but with that game on the weekend, obviously everyone's been talking Adelaide up and what they've been able to do this year. Well, Essendon really put on a dominant performance, and at halftime the game was arguably over at 81-44 at halftime. Obviously, Essendon going on to win 115-97, but they looked good from start to finish. The pressure, Mace, was there all game. Zach Merritt taking over the captaincy, but just taking over this game. 39 touches, 6 tackles, a goal, and just brought the heat. He's really, setting the standard for these young kids. And Brad Scott has them playing amazing footy. And I don't know, it's pretty promising if you're an Essendon supporter.
We mentioned it. I mean, if you are going into the back half of the season, get a bit of momentum, you make finals, like that's the time of year to want that. And the way Essendon's playing at the moment, they're definitely getting a bit of momentum and playing well in the time that it counts. And, if they get a spot in the finals and they're in peak form, you don't know. They might be able to end that streak. Everyone talks about they haven't won a final in X amount of days, whatever it is. Like, if they continue on this trajectory, then there's a chance that might be broken.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really exciting to watch them play. And Brad Scott's done it in a really smart way where preseason he set that expectation to say, look, we're probably a couple of years off it, but we're going to give it a red hot crack this year. And it just set that expectation, a bit lower. So now that they're up and about and they're flying, everyone's getting right around them. And, they're not invincible. They're not like you can't not score against them or whatever, but they're in every single game from start to finish. They just keep putting it on their opposition, and it's interesting. And you do love seeing the big clubs up and about. If Carlton can start pulling their weight, which they've started to do in the past few weeks, get all the big teams coming up. It's always good to see. Fremantle v Carlton.
Was it 4 weeks now they haven't lost?
They haven't lost in 4 weeks, and I'll give it to them this week. They dominated. That was their best win for the year, convincingly.
Yeah. Now, in Fremantle, like in Perth, at Optus.
Fremantle just couldn't get going. And they couldn't get going because Carlton has brought the same pressure for the last couple of weeks. And it's amazing what pressure can do. I don't understand it as a person that's outside the footy environment, because I can always say that pressure is the one thing you don't need any talent to produce.
Yep.
Why are they just bringing it now? But once you see that pressure, it just froze Fremantle. They couldn't do anything.
And I think once you get that pressure, then it kind of, puts them on the back foot, and then they're constantly kind of almost shitting themselves, going like, oh, how do I get this disposal out effectively to the next person, try to get the forward line. And that momentum just keeps going forward, and that leads into your forward line. And for them to kick 98 and Fremantle only 45, it's credit to their defense and offense. And on the day, it was impressive. Like, I remember sitting there at halftime and I was like, oh my gosh, like, Carlton's dominating this game. So, it's like you said, I think it's Carlton's best win in the season so far, and it's coming at a time that they needed it, and they're going to need to continue this momentum if they want to make finals, and they're well aware of that. But it does release the pressure. You got to think, like, 4 weeks ago, how much talk was there about Carlton? Oh my gosh, it was everyone's head on a stick. Now, hey, there's a chance of making the 8.
You can really only give your opinion based off what you can see. Yeah. And before the last 3 wins, this is
footy though. It can change very quickly.
Well, maybe the criticism did them wonders and they started to perform off the back of that. I want to ask something now. They say there's no dumb questions, mate, but I'm going to throw one at you. Is there, from a technical reason, like a technical standpoint, is there a reason why a team couldn't bring the pressure? If it's like, too many people go at the ball carrier, it leaves too many people on the outside and you can get cut up. Is there, our structure doesn't allow us to get close, or their structure doesn't allow us because they chip mark. Is there reasons why you can't just go all flat out attack on the ball carrier?
Yeah, you can. But I mean, like you said, if there's a slow team, like let's say it's West Coast chip mark team, right? Western Bulldogs handball through team. So like there's different teams with different game plans, different styles that handle pressure in different ways. And if you're sitting there and saying like, why can't the pressure, from the forward line happen? And you've got myself times 6, it's probably a freaking reason. Like, you're too big. Like, so there is like, certain things that happen, or, certain game plans, or maybe players within a system that can't provide as much pressure as someone like a Taylor Adams, right? So you offset a big like me with someone like Taylor Adams who brings twice as much pressure as probably other people. You get an even tout. So I think it's something like we value very highly at our club, like pressure or pressure side. But I think other clubs, they just have different game plans, and some can, handle pressure a bit better and some can't. And, a lot of that probably has more to do with the offensive side of things than the defensive side of things. But yeah, it comes down to how in shape you are probably as a team. Like pressure can be considered based on that. But also it's a mentality. It is a mentality a bit of like whether or not you're going to make sure that this isn't an effective disposal if your man does get the ball.
So I know now Bo McCreary is lifting a lot of workload. Right. He's covering a lot of people.
He's covering all my pressure points.
It's good to see. But obviously going into next week, Carlton finally have their chance to, test this pressure against one of the top teams in the competition. If
massive game.
If not the top team at the moment, Port Adelaide at Marvel Stadium. So
away game for both of them.
Yeah, away game for both of them. It's going to be very interesting to see how that pressure stands up.
Who you got winning that game?
If the Carlton of the last 2 weeks shows up, they're going to give them a red hot crack. And I can see Carlton winning that game if that
would be huge.
If that pressure comes.
Yeah.
So,
non-negotiable pressure has to be there.
And it's what happened last year. They probably got ahead of themselves a fair bit in the media, pumping up Carlton when they'd only versed teams outside the 8. Now we get to see if they can do it against a team inside the 8, inside the top 4, inside the top 2, Mace.
Be a real test, and there'll be a lot of Carlton fans out there just sweating on that game, wondering how that's going to come out.
Hey, well, they've got, they're back. They're, knocking it. They're ready to take the lid off again. Western Bulldogs versus Collingwood.
Yep.
Jeez.
Two things out of this,
Talk about another close one, mate. It came down to it in the end, but it was a topsy-turvy affair because they, jumped right out of the blocks.
They're hot out of the blocks.
And got on you early. We've got to jump forward to this one. Norton and Jamarra, first half. They were blowing the doors off the thing. It was crazy to see because obviously Jamarra last couple of weeks really, found his form.
It's another gear at the moment.
And his marking form in particular. He is just hanging over packs, and it was very much the same. Yeah. Norton's always had it. He's always shown it. So seeing those two up early, flying for everything, marking everything, kicking most things, it had to be, you guys must have been shuddering at the thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we've had a few teams do this to us, and we've been able to come back by the fourth quarter. But yeah, it was impressive. Like the way they move the ball, and I think their just hands and skills inside is like so clean, like the Bulldogs, and they can kind of we talk about pressure before of like being able to handle it and stuff. Like their hands through pressure is so clean and good that sometimes like if you don't bring it and bring it at an elite level. They can be damaging on the other way. So their turnover game going back the other way is really, really good. And their ability to spread and be able to get it into the bigs was really good at the beginning of that game. And it was a credit to them. They were smashing us in the first probably 15 minutes.
Where did the game turn?
I don't know. Maybe it was Darcy Moore tackling Bont on the goal line. That got me hyped.
That was so good.
Oh, that was so good. It was real like Ollie Henry, goal square, should probably kick the goal, but gets tackled and like couldn't get it to his boot. And a captain tackle, big time play. It's a credit to him. And I reckon that was probably one of those things. The momentum just shifted a little bit whenever that happened, and we were able to go on a bit of a run.
Sliding door moments like that, because Bontempelli, the play before, running into an open goal and missed, which you don't see Bontempelli do. And then when he ducked out the back and it looked like he was going to run into an open square, and you're like, oh, well, he's getting this one back pretty quick. Holding the ball, which is almost rarer. And I was thinking there was a fleeting thought in my mind of like, to get Bontempelli to the ground, he's a strong boy. Darcy really had to flick him like a 540 and tackle him to ground. And I was like, if they pay some kind of dangerous tackle, that's where it gets, dicey, when it's like,
he's a big guy. It takes a lot of like leverage to get to the ground.
Caleb Daniel, photo of you next to him. Like,
what a legend, by the way.
Taking your son to work day.
Come on, be nice.
And
he's such a good player too. One of the best kicks in the comp.
Actually, he tackled Sean Darcy, got him in a big bump earlier in the year.
Yeah.
It's like, so moments like that, it's like if he wants to tackle you to the ground, he's going to have to use a hell of a lot of leverage.
He's going to have to fall because I think it pile drives someone
So it's like, I don't know, you're putting a lot of players in like weird, precarious positions to like with that rule change. But I mean, it has to happen. There was a few things out of this game, a few talking points. Will Huskin-Elliott, broken hand. So,
not ideal.
So he'll probably miss a few weeks, it looks like, which is, really not ideal. Obviously, no Steele at the moment. So you got a little position to fill there, which will be interesting to see. But you got a lot of young kids that like to run up and down there all day. So I'm sure that'll be fine. Now, you've got a couple of brothers that play for you. I don't know if you know these guys, Nika Dukusi.
And Dukusi,
and Josh Dukusi.
From Macedonia, mate.
Yeah, they're, oh my God, I don't even.
Freaks is what they are. Freaks of nature.
Half of me is sick of talking about them every week, but the other half is just, I just love talking about them every week because they do shit that no one has seen. And it's like Josh was,
Josh is somewhat flown under the radar because there's so much hype around Nick and the Brownlow and all this kind of stuff, right? Like Josh has been an insane, I think he's Australian this year, but people wouldn't even think about it.
I think he's starting to get the plaudits that he deserves. Like they're starting to realize because he's becoming undeniable. The kid's getting 28, 30 touches, couple of goals a game. Like he's just a machine. And his kicking in particular against the Bulldogs, there wasn't a target that he couldn't hit. There was one up on the wing where he was mid getting hit and he hits it down the line and, hits like Ash Johnson on the lead or something, like right on the tit. And it's like, mate, how do you even do that? Like there's some blokes can't hit a 20 meter out in the open.
The one I had was Nick. He's sitting there in the forward. He's coming through as a midfielder and like the ball comes to ground. He just like picks it up and just like bananas from about 45, just casually. And
I seen the lead up play for that. He is in defensive 50.
Yeah.
Wanders contest to contest. He's like, yeah, here if you need handball 1-2, jogs on to the next contest. Yeah, here, 1-2, runs back. And then like front and center for the thing, gets the banana outside the foot, little celebration back to the middle. It's like, mate, stop it.
I will say this. I had someone recently, a player on an opposition team, right, was playing against me and Nick had done XYZ, in the game. And he goes, he's behind me. He goes, he's an absolute freak of an athlete, isn't he? And I was like, yep. It's great to have him on my team too. It's not just us that thinks he's amazing. Like everyone in the league sees it and is like, this is insane.
They both float. They float through the air and they do the most miraculous things. The one where Josh got the ball, and it could have been maybe not 15 or not, but he didn't even care. He already played on and just kicked it off a step, went straight through the middle from the boundary. And it's just like they can do amazing things, and they're undeniable now. I think both of them are undeniable. I think earlier in the year, everyone tried to poke holes in Nick Dacos's game. Oh, he gets easy touches. There was one moment that was fleeting on tape where he pulled out of a contest. He's soft, even though he had like 30 contested possessions for the game or whatever. It's like they're really just trying to prick holes in it. Fans, opposition fans, because, the same thing. Tear him down, mate. So they're trying to get too high. But yeah, I think both Dacos brothers are undeniable. I think both are locked for all Australian. And I think Nick's, we don't want to say it on this podcast, but geez,
he's going well.
He's going very well.
But the biggest thing that came out of this, I think, and one of the biggest moments of the game, it was awesome. The fans got involved. It was a bit of a rocking atmosphere for a disposal. Now, Pendles broke the disposal record, and it was insane. Like being out there, I didn't really know when it happened. So there's 2 or 3 disposals. You got kind of quickly in a little bit of a passage of play, and the crowd was getting up and about, every single one. So I was like, was that it? Or was it the next one? Was that one? Was that the one he broke the record? Was that the one? Like you couldn't tell. But he came up on the big jumbotron that he broke the record. And I think Pendles was like more annoyed that people were talking about it so much. He was like, let's just win the game. Let's move on. But he doesn't I feel like it's just like, yeah, that is such a big deal. And it's a credit to him in his career. And we've always looked back on these things, the 350th game and all these other things of him and his milestones that he's been able to accomplish. And this is one that definitely is like top of the table as far as milestones. It's insane. Like you're the most disposals of any player to ever play AFL.
Well, he's got a few more in his sights because he'll go on next year, sign another contract. He'll be knocking at the door of 10,000 disposals.
That'd be cool.
He'll be knocking at the door of 400 games.
Yeah.
Like there's some massive milestones and he just keeps trucking. Like I don't see him. He's just, he can't slow down. I was going to say, can't see him
Makes
slowing
everyone
down.
else slow down around him.
But I was looking at him going like, he wants to hit some,
he wants to do real, like inside 45 gets us a goal.
He's pretty special.
You could say that.
Now, one last thing before we do wrap it up, Mace. Sports Illustrated. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's this little rag that they run out of the States nowadays. And
probably the biggest sports publication out there. Yep. Yeah, heard about it.
So it might not be a pretty big deal. Anyway, I saw you post over the weekend, the AFL featuring on the big double page spread.
Huge. I think there are like 5 pages in it, and it was the very, very front of the magazine. So a lot of people realizing what AFL is and getting a bit of exposure on a big stage, which is pretty cool. And it was the Women's World Cup issue. So obviously a Women's World Cup coming to Australia, big deal, and New Zealand. And they had AFL as one of the openers to the magazine, which was really cool. It was really cool, man. And it's like, I grew up reading Sports Illustrated. That was kind of like the media before
Swimsuit edition.
Everything else. Did have a few of those. Everyone did, right? Kids.
Don't pretend like I didn't know about the magazine, but I know that one.
Man. And what was that girl's name?
Oh no, I'm not getting into specifics.
But no, it was awesome. Like it was pretty cool to see that, and I guess something that you read as a kid and then seeing your own face in there was a pretty cool experience, to say the least. And it was a great exposure for the IFL, great exposure for the club and a few other clubs that were involved, and something hopefully we can get around as a league.
Now, did you think growing up reading the Sports Illustrated magazine that you'd see your own face in there doing a double cobra?
The old Trav Clark double cobras, baby. Hey, not the only person that did it this weekend. Nick Dacos joined the club.
Yeah.
The 2 double cobras.
It was a good goal. Jeez, he's a freak.
Absolute freak. But we'll end it there. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Absolute legends. We'll have more. We've got a podcast with Tom Mitchell coming out later this week, too.
2 Toms.
2 Toms. There's another...
surprise Tom.
There's another surprise Tom in there. You got to listen to understand. But that's coming out later this week. Check it out. And also, before we go, it's the last chance to get merch. This thing is dissipating at the moment.
So many people tagging us in the merch.
It's so good, too. It's awesome. I had someone at the game. Someone at the game had the merch, and I made sure to go over to him and sign it and take a photo with him.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
It's all about the OG. So if you do want the OG merch, you got essentially about 24 hours, and that thing's gone. So we're going to put the other merch in after that, but we want to make sure that the people that have been here since the beginning, they have the special logo. So anytime we see it, we know that you're one of the OGs of this podcast that supported us through thick and thin and through those rough times at the very beginning.
The rough times.
But seriously, y'all, appreciate the love. love. Follow us on all the socials as you always do, and spread the love to your friends and family. And a massive, massive thank you for tuning in this week.
Oh, thanks, Jamarra. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thanks, Jamarra. Absolute legend again. We love you.